We're going to move right into our panel discussion now. So let me introduce the wonderful panel that John has put together, and I apologize, losing my voice a little bit as well. Oh, okay, thank you. Losing my voice, so I have a lozenge. But we're going to start with Cassius Butts, who's the regional administrator for the SBA here in Region 4, which means he covers all of the programs that the Small Business Administration delivers in the states of Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina. Did I miss any? Okay. Cassius Butts. Cassius also is a graduate of a little school just down the road a little ways, Morehouse College. Some of you may know the college. And Cassius spends his days and his nights thinking about how we do exactly what Jim was talking about, and that's creating jobs by helping small businesses grow and succeed. So thank you, Cassius, for joining us. We also have Jerome Russell, who is the president of H.J. Russell and Company in New Urban Development. He's been involved in the construction and development business for more than 25 years, even though he doesn't look like he should have been in the industry for that long. He started his career, actually, going up to Chicago, where he ran City Beverage, which was a $15 million beverage company, distribution company there. Came back and realized that his love was really in construction and development. And in 1995, he was named president and COO of H.J. Russell. And then in 2003, he started Russell New Urban Development Company. All of these people serve on about 20 or 30 different boards and organizations. I won't run through them all because I'm sure you can imagine what they do. We also have Jim Wells, who's the former chairman and CEO of SunTrust Bank. I think many of you probably know about SunTrust Bank. He served as the CEO of SunTrust from 2007 to April of 2011. Prior to that, he was the president of Crestar. I certainly remember Crestar. And before that, he started his career at United Virginia Bankshares in Richmond. He's a graduate of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and the Stonier Graduate School of Banking at Rutgers University. Again, a long list of accomplishments in his career, so I won't go through that. We also have Mike Johnson, who's the Vice President for Global Talent and Rewards at UPS. He does, among other things, compensation and benefits, talent management, organizational development, learning and talent development, and employee engagement, and so on and so forth. So he does a lot. And why I think his role is almost the most important role of folks on this panel, because if we don't find ways to develop the talent for the jobs that we're going to be producing, that Cassius and Jim and others are going to be producing, we're not going to succeed in the global competition. But he knows firsthand how developing talent throughout your career is the only way to succeed. In fact, he started his career at UPS 36 years ago as a part-time package handler in his hometown of Los Angeles. He's made his career by learning and understanding what it takes to go on to the next job, and I think that translates well into the type of thing that we need to take back to the President. Also joining us from the President's Council on Jobs and Competitiveness is Christopher Che. I'm proud to say that I am a friend of Christopher. I have learned a lot by being able to spend some time with him while he has served the President and served this country. He also, his day job, even though we work him hard enough with the Jobs Council that he may think that it's actually his night job, but his day job is as CEO of Hooven Dayton Corporation in Dayton, Ohio. It's a packaging company, one of the fastest growing companies in Ohio. They partner with every major company you can imagine. They've expanded into northern Ohio. He's based in Dayton, but he's expanded in northern Ohio. Christopher is leading by example. There was a company that was about to go out of business. He said, no, let me get the financing that I need and buy this business so we can keep these people employed, even as the economy was crashing all around him. So, Christopher, thank you for joining us, and thank you for serving on the council. Christopher is the voice for all of you with the president. Also joining us in what I consider Jobs Force One. I didn't get to fly Air Force One, as John said, but Jobs Force One, I got to fly on Delta tonight. And the face of Delta for the past 12 years has been Scarlett Presley Brown, who has led had a number of different roles at the company, but she's established the company as a leading corporate citizen. And that's important for what we're talking about tonight, because corporations, in addition to creating jobs, are also helping to pave the way and driving change throughout this country. And I think Delta is a prime example of how you can lead by example. In addition to that role, she's actually, what in the government we call it on detail. I know that's not what they call it in the private sector, but she's on detail. She's on loan to as the Vice President of Marketing for the National Center for Civil and Human Rights here in Atlanta. So she's taken that drive at Delta to the next level and is spending her time and energy at the center. So we thank you so much for joining us. And last but not least, and I don't know if we have a seat yet for him. I think it's coming. But our moderator for tonight, someone who doesn't need any introduction unless you've been living under a stone or on the moon for the last, I won't say how many years. Person who was elected as the second African-American mayor of Atlanta, a force of nature, one of the civil rights leaders, pioneers, mentor for so many, and an icon and model for all of us. The former mayor, the ambassador, who, let me just say, as mayor, led the country from what some might say the time of despair and economic, a time where the economy was not growing nearly as well as anyone would have liked, where too many people were losing out on opportunities, to one where in 1988, U.S. News and World Report found that this city was, in a survey of major executives, was far and away their overwhelming first choice to locate a business. I am pleased to have with us tonight someone that I look up to as well, and I hope to emulate throughout my career, Ambassador Andrew Young.
Thank you very much. I tell you, Jim Clifton laid it on the line, and it couldn't be any plainer than that. We need jobs. Everybody needs jobs. In his book, The Coming Jobs War, he says we've got 7 billion people on Earth and only 1.2 billion jobs. So immediately, to stabilize the global economy, we've got to find a way to generate at least 1.8 billion jobs. That would be 3 billion jobs to take care of 7 billion people. Now that's reasonable, isn't it? Isn't it reasonable? Can we do it? And he said, everybody is an asset. And he doesn't care which party it is. And he doesn't care whether you're black or white or where you come from. The important thing is, can you generate a job? Can you create a job? Can you inspire other people to generate jobs? Now, for the most part, the people on this panel have done this. And I will shut up and hear what you have to say. Can we just, let's start with the lady? Or you want to start at the other end? Okay. Why don't we just get a quick, 30, 60-second reaction to what Jim had to say, and come on down the line and start the conversation that way.
Well, can you hear me?
Yeah.
There is no doubt that jobs are critical to our nation and to the world. And being a part of a business person myself, I understand what it means for our employees to maintain their jobs, or those seeking jobs to have one. Also, being a part of the Jobs Council, I have come to really understand how closely the president feels about this subject matter, and the fact that he believes job creation is a matter of practical common sense, of bringing people of all walks of life together, which is what the Jobs Council represents. And quite a good number of things that we have done at the Jobs Council with the participation of people like you to be able to give him those 90 recommendations, out of which 60 are already being implemented. So there's no doubt that jobs is an issue, and we must face it, and face it not from a partisan perspective, but using just common, practical common sense to come up with solutions.
Jerome, your daddy started out with nothing.
Correct.
And as a 16-year-old, he bought a house and fixed it up and rented it out. How many people do you all employ now?
In all our enterprises, about 2,000.
That's pretty good. Go ahead and tell us how you do it.
Well, I think to answer Jim, I think one of the key things that I heard is a will, that you got to have a will to win. You got to have a will to make a difference. That's one. Two, you got to have a vision on kind of where you're going to go, because if you don't have a vision, you won't have the will. And thirdly, this whole piece about education, financial literacy. The more I'm in business, the more I realize that the real impact is how we educate our youth. And if there's anything, as we look at H.J. Russell and Company and what we're going to do or where we're going to invest our money, that's where it's,
Where did you get your education?
Georgia State University.
And where else?
Started at Westminster, then graduated from Georgia State.
And where else?
That's it. I mean, and in the...
No, that's not it. He got his education with my son, working for his father, cleaning up nasty rental apartments after people moved out.
Yeah.
You didn't start with a position. Your daddy made sure you had a job.
Yes.
And you all used to come home so dirty, my wife would hose them down on the back porch and make them take their clothes off. That's a job.
Yeah.
Now, I emphasize that because Dr. Mays insisted that everybody at Morehouse, especially those with leadership ability, would go to work in the fields. And he would send them up to the tobacco fields in Connecticut. And so Maynard Jackson, who went there as a 14-year-old, went to work, and Maynard was a big kid, and he had to crawl in the dirt under a net 4 feet high and prune tobacco and nurse tobacco. He had to go 2 summers. Martin Luther King just had to go 1 summer. But Dr. Mays felt that to be a leader, you had to know what it was to work. And I think one of the reasons you're where you are is not what you learned at Georgia State, but what your daddy has taught you.
Yeah, what Andy was saying is that what my father and my mother, they instilled the will, and that nothing is easy in life. You got to put forth an effort to be successful in whatever you are. So at the age of 9 to 10, we were working, as he said, in apartments, painting, cleaning them out. But that early experience is what provided, the desire to drive us and to drive me forward in whatever I do every day.
That's good. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pick on you, but I wanted to point that out.
Thank you, Ambassador. First, I want to really just thank John Hope Bryant for having us here today, SBA here today. Ambassador Young, of course, you're one of the pioneers. One thing Ambassador told me a couple years ago, whenever I'm to meet someone, to introduce myself to someone, to make sure I acknowledge the lady first. So I was just following suit, Scarlett. Thank you so much for allowing us to go before you. We appreciate it. And you see, I'm learning, Ambassador. To come back and to make it just very simple and plain, one of the best things that I get to do by being appointed by President Obama is to talk about SBA, talk about jobs and job creation. And the importance is this, and it's very simple and it's very clean. This past fiscal year, we reached a height that has never been done before. SBA backed over $4 billion in jobs in the southeastern region. Never been done before in history. That deserves a round of applause somewhere, Ambassador, somewhere. I say that to say because when folks talk about the economy as being challenged, I mean, it's okay, and it is a challenge. But there are still people out there making it happen. We haven't had a lot of attention because there's been another thing that's been going on that is so thankful in our favor last Tuesday. But jobs have been created. And I'll kind of end with this. Our small business person of the year last year, young gentleman out of Tennessee, his father owned a cowboy boot company. And his father owned the company for 30 years. And Ambassador, he rented the space out of the building that he'd been selling cowboy boots for 30 years. His son said, Dad, I heard about this thing in the SBA. And he said, well, I can start and grow my own business. He said, well, I'd like to take the company over. This young gentleman came to SBA, got free one-on-one confidential counseling, took out a 7A loan, and began to sell so many cowboy boots online, exporting. The president's challenge to double the amount of exporting by year 2014.
He was selling what now?
Cowboy boots.
Oh, okay.
Cowboy boots. Boots. Make it simple and plain, boots.
Yeah.
And he sold so many of these boots, Ambassador, that he had to open up a storefront in downtown Nashville. He sold so many boots in downtown Nashville, he came back to SBA in today's economic times, Jerome, and took out a 504 loan, which means he bought the building that his father had been renting for the last 30 years. He employed his roommate. He employed all his friends on the hall at University of Tennessee, and they have close to 40 new jobs, people who are now in a position of growing and starting their own business. So I just want to make that plug as we're talking about jobs and how real it is. And we are in a position, we're going to do something really great, and John and I had talked about this earlier. SBA is going to be in a position to have a MOU in place where we're going to offer our staff. My staff is going to come to Ebenezer, my home church, to work with Hope and to give free one-on-one confidential counseling and services at no cost. So we're supporting the mission.
Very good. And the other thing you're saying is that online jobs and exports is something that was not available before, but is readily available now.
It is.
Any idea how many boots he's selling now?
He sold so many, but well, let me put it this way. He sold so many, Ambassador, that he is now opening up a storefront abroad in Mexico. And I don't know how many boots that is, but when you can leave a small town in Tennessee and go to Mexico and open up a shop abroad, and he's bringing jobs back here because he's employing folks in Tennessee online. And you talk about this young person who just had a dream, had a vision. And it sounds like many of us have been sitting at this table and many of you in the audience, and I hope many of you take advantage of that.
Okay.
I just have, is this working? I can't, it's
Yeah.
hard to tell up here. I had two contextual things I think are important to consider here, and one is serious, the other is a real opportunity, and then I'd like to agree with Jerome about will being the most important part of success in the business world. The first context that I'd like to point out is that today, and this is true for city fathers and for state fathers and for the country, no business has to be anywhere. SunTrust Bank was founded in the 1890s as Trust Company Bank in Atlanta, Georgia, and SunTrust Bank, of its entirety, is headquartered up here on Peachtree Street, but doesn't have to be headquartered on Peachtree Street. So the reality is this jobs thing is a competitive matter globally, but it's also a competitive matter between Atlanta and Charlotte and New York and Chicago and Los Angeles and San Francisco. I think it's important to remember that. Businesses don't have to be anywhere anymore. Now, there's some manufacturing issues, and mines certainly do. Obviously, there are exceptions. But I think we ought to consider that as being a big part of this issue of job growth and where does it actually happen. The second context is that, and Jim said this beautifully, that the workforce today is, I was a banker for 43 years, the workforce today is radically different from any I saw all through my 43 years. They are aggressive. Many are very well educated. Few are some are very poorly educated. They have a clear mind. One of the new things that's happened over the last 10 or 15 years is that they care about the social responsibility of the place they work in ways that I never saw before until 10 or 15 years ago. That's a very important part of job growth in getting successful people, because when it's all over, the people are all that matter. The technology matters, but it doesn't matter as much as the people. All the other things follow. And the point I'd like to get back about will is that it's very clear to me that having the will that Jerome and his brother and his father had, and people who have done what they have done to succeed, enables success. If one waits for help, if one waits for aid, if one waits for training, if one waits for whatnot, the success is being avoided. It is the will and the drive of people, and it's on an individual basis.
Very good.
Thank you.
Ambassador Young, I too remember my dad instilling a work ethic in me. Because I started out loading trucks, UPS part-time. And he was happy I got the job. But they weren't quite truthful about the part-time hours back then, because I was working till wee hours of the morning. And I came in one night, and he was getting up to go to work. My dad walked in, he flipped the light on in the kitchen, he looked at me, he says, "Where have you been?" And I said, "Well, I've been working." Then he looked at me, he says, "Well, you're dirty enough, you must have been working." Because I was covered from head to toe in dirt. But he said, "That's good." And he smiled at me and he said, "That's good for you, I help you grow up." But this thing at UPS about instilling a work ethic kind of started with how we started as a company. We're 105 years old, and we started as a messenger company. And our founder, really thought about, the basics around hard day's work, fair day's pay, make sure you take care of your people. And those tenets still live true today. And I do agree with Jim, the other comments that Jim made, is that it's not just about the hiring. It's about what do you do to invest in your people. So we spend a lot of money investing in training, making sure that we provide people good wages, good benefits, so they can provide a secure future for their families. That results in low turnover, because when you invest in your people, you don't want to lose that talent. So by retaining the talent, you help to stabilize this issue of unemployment. You give people opportunities to grow in your organization. We have a big promote from within culture at UPS. And all of those things combined, I think, send a strong message to our workforce that we're in this together. So the investments that we make in our people really pay off for us in long-term employees that are committed to the organization, that deliver the service every day, and they're committed to it, and they're engaged in what we're trying to do.
It's also that you're about logistics.
We are. We are.
Which means as the population grows and as business grows, you got to grow. Mm-hmm. But the other thing I like about UPS is that guys who started out driving trucks in college and trying to get through school ended up, when the company went public, getting a lot of stock and stock options. Mm-hmm. And there are probably more ex-truck driver millionaires in this town than there are from any other company.
That's
Wouldn't you say that's true?
That's absolutely true.
Let's give them a hand. And one of the things I'm emphasizing is, especially our folk are looking for positions. See, and they want to go to work with a shirt and tie on and sit in an air-conditioned office. That may not be your job, and it may not be your future. And I think the guys who went with UPS did a whole lot better than a lot of folk that got MBAs and went out as consultants somewhere. Now, Miss Scarlett, how many people you all employ at Delta?
locally here in the Georgia area, 25,000, but
And in the whole
70,000
thing,
worldwide.
70,000 people. And you know how much you all bring to the city, and how many planes a day?
Well, to the Georgia area, we generate $25 billion annually. We serve 67 countries, 6 continents, and about 5,000 flights a day out of Atlanta.
Now, you know how that happened, and let me give a plug to Maynard Jackson, because Maynard Jackson and a young fellow by the name of Bill Hayden, who was an investment banker, started figuring out how to build an airport with no money. And we did it. And by and large, we sold tax-exempt municipal bonds. And I've been trying to find out how much that airport cost us. And nobody knows. Because every time we needed more money, we went back to Wall Street and got some more. Now, it almost didn't take anything. I mean, the city council didn't even know what they were doing half the time. I said, we need a new runway when I got to be mayor. We just opened this, and I went to the city council and I said, resolution to go to Wall Street to purchase bonds. And everybody voted for it. And I didn't even know how much. When I got there, I was signing for $300 million. Just my name. And I didn't have a nickel. But we built the runways, we built the terminal, and every time it expanded, we went back to Wall Street. So the link with Wall Street, more so than with the federal government or the state government or the city government, is private finance, and it's people bought it because it was tax-exempt municipal bonds. Now, so they could invest their money, and for the most time, I would say Atlanta's bonds have averaged close to 6% over the last 20 years. And that's 6% tax exempt. So everybody that bought those bonds made money. So they got no complaint. The city council never got any complaint. The newspapers never had any complaint because we never taxed anybody for them. So the link with Wall Street was one thing. The other thing was that we made a link with foreign capital. The first time that I went to a trust company and talked to Bob Strickland about making Atlanta an international city, he and I got to be good friends eventually, but when I left, he told Charlie Loudermilk, Charlie, where did you get that nut from? But I knew that there were petrodollars, they used to call them back then, that at least 400 to 500 billion that were in Swiss banks, and where the Swiss were charging them money to keep it. So we went to the places where they had money and invited them to come to Atlanta. And I was with the German Consul General last month. And in 8 years, we brought in 300 German companies in here. And I said, how many German companies do you have here now? He said, oh, we got about 1,500. I said, in the Atlanta area? He said, yeah, in the metropolitan area. I said, how many do you have nationwide? He said, well, it's 3,000. I said, and half of them are here? Now, the other thing we did was we provided a safe and honest and efficient environment. So companies could move here, they could move into tax-exempt industrial parks, and they could get some tax breaks, but we also guaranteed them efficiency, and we said you don't have to pay anybody under the table. We turned the mayor's office into a one-stop shop, so that when they came to see me, I took a picture with them, and I put them in the hands of one person to walk them through all the environmental regulations, all the affirmative action, and keep them by the hand till they open their business. So an efficient city environment can attract a lot of money, but it wouldn't have happened without Delta, so that's why I'm coming back to you. Can you figure about how much money you all bring in here on these 5,000 flights a day?
Well, generating annually, we're well over $25 billion annually. That's just in the Southeast region area. And the beauty of what we do is the fact that we connect the world. Therefore, we're also creating jobs worldwide.
And that's how many cities?
357 countries on 6 continents. We don't serve one continent, and that's Antarctica, but we serve all 6 continents.
Now y'all were a crop duster airline.
Out of
they really used to be. They used to be crop dusters from Louisiana.
Yeah.
When Mayor Hartsfield brought them here, and gave them all the land they needed for $1 a year for 50 years, if they would move to Atlanta. And he put up red lights, brought Delta here, and he proceeded to get voted out of office. But he knew it was right, and everybody knew it was right. So that's what created that was the start of the Atlanta miracle. Because Mayor Hartsfield said, there are not enough progressive white people in this town to keep this town moving forward. So he went out to the Atlanta University complex, to Atlanta University, Morehouse, Spelman, Clark, and he formed a coalition between the business community and the black academic community. And that partnership between business and the black community has generated the opportunity that has grown this city from less than about 500,000 when I got here. And I think the last time I saw our population, we were 5,913,000. So we're just about at 6 million. Now, our unemployment rate has stayed the same. But there are a heck of a lot. When UPS moved here, you brought, what, 11,000 jobs?
We came here, in fact, we're celebrating our 20th year in Atlanta. We came here in '92. And this is how the company's changed. So we had 4,000 people we came here. We had one facility, one corporate office we built. But now we've got 7 different facilities. We have a worldwide data center. We've got 2 corporate offices, one for our logistics business, one for our global headquarters. We've built freight facilities. So we've built lots of infrastructure. We were a $13 billion company with 4,000 people in Atlanta. We are now a $50 billion company, and we have north of 15,000 people here in Atlanta, working in those various facilities. But our organization has also, grown to about 400,000 people worldwide. So that was the kind of, growth that we, brought. Now, what we brought to the economy, when we first came here, they estimated that to be somewhere in 10 years, we bring about $1 billion to the economy. It's north of about $6 billion of economic growth we've generated just by kind of being in the city. So there's all kinds of, added benefits about, why we moved to Atlanta. But when I went back and did the research, Ambassador Young, was fascinating. There was 3 things that brought us here. One was that Atlanta was, kind of the golden nugget. We were competing with 4 other cities when we decided to move out of Connecticut. We won't name the other cities because Atlanta won. but it was the city that was growing. It had a lot of diversity, had affordable housing. It had good opportunities for our people to come and kind of get rooted into their communities.
We had good public schools too, and good universities.
Well, and I was going to say, the other big thing is we were getting ready to really grow in our technology arenas, and so the university systems here were real attractive to us. Specifically, I don't want to offend Georgia, but Georgia Tech was, because we have a lot of engineering opportunities at UPS. So it was a real win for our organization to move our corporate headquarters here in Atlanta. And we were having a hard time attracting and retaining talent in Connecticut because it was just so expensive. So by coming here, we were able to grow the organization, get a lot more young, energetic, educated, folks to come take the jobs to grow the organization. So it was a good opportunity for us to select Atlanta as our home, and we've been very happy being here.
Anybody else with any comments?
I have one thing. You can see it, I say, if you're listening, and I know you are, that there is an Atlanta spirit. It's absolutely real. we are here, you're seeing some of it right here in this room. I've lived in other cities in the United States, and some of them sort of are down in the mouth about themselves. You know, they can't get it done. There are always reasons and whatnot. Atlanta is one of the few. Charlotte would be another one that is this way, by the way, where the business community and the political community are well armed with knowledge about each other. They work hard together to get the important things, infrastructure-wise, as the ambassador said, or the Center for Civil and Human Rights, for example. There is also, as a result of that, a giving spirit among the corporations in Atlanta. It's not just charitable, but there are individuals and corporations who are deeply involved in a large diversity of things that go on in this city. All of that makes it an attractive place for businesses to come and to grow. This is maybe the best example I've heard in a long time. But it's not magic. It's a collegial, deeply involved, respectful atmosphere that happens, that creates businesses, and businesses create the jobs.
But that's magic.
It is magic. It is magic. And I've lived here since 2000, so I wasn't here for a lot of the early days' work, but I can feel it still happening in Atlanta. And it's not secret. There is no secret sauce. It's hard work. It's a collegial, respectful atmosphere among the citizens, the academic communities, the business communities, the political communities, and that will do it.
Well, let me tell another quick story about a guy who got to be a millionaire in college. His roommate's mother called him and said, it's Millard Fuller, who you know now as the developer of Habitat for Humanity. Mm-hmm. But Millard, when he was a freshman at University of Alabama, got this call. Lady said, if I send you $25, will you get a birthday cake and have a little party for my son's birthday? He said, sure. Then it went off. He said, there are 25,000 students here. We probably have 10 people having a birthday every day. And he said, if I can get $25 for every birthday party I put together, and what he did was sent out letters, first of all, to his friends. And everybody responded, saying, yes, they wanted that. Then he realized, where am I going to get all these cakes? So in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, he went to black churches. And he found ladies who could make cakes. And he hired them, and he said, I will have a certain number of cakes for you every week. I don't know, but I'll let you know every Sunday how many cakes I need the rest of the week. Well, by the time he left the University of Alabama, he was a millionaire on birthday cakes for students. And it's not hard to make money when you're in the midst of all the money we're in the midst of. But you have to think about being an entrepreneur, and you have to be willing to take some crazy risks and do some things that have never been done before. And I think that's sort of the secret of this region.
Ambassador, I'm glad you mentioned that part about the region. We had a phenomenal year in 2011, and going to 2012, we did at SBA, we backed over $9 billion in loans in federal dollars to small business in the state of Georgia alone. So when you talk about the entrepreneurial spirit and working with the federal government, it is alive and it's very well. Our small business development centers, we have a women business owned center, development center at Kennesaw that is, if you're a woman and you want to start a business, you can go to our Women Business Center. We can help you at no cost. This is free confidential counseling. But just to your point, Ambassador, about the region, there's a family, the Brown family, who's out of Jacksonville. And as I mentioned, the best part about what we do is tell people about what used to happen at SBA and what's going on now. And there was a young gentleman, he said, and it was about a year and a half ago, he said, oh, congratulations, about 2 years ago, he said, congratulations on your job. He said, well, my parents tried to get an SBA loan. He said it was too much paperwork, and they were so disenchanted where they were trying to start a barbecue sauce manufacturing company, and they just didn't want to bother. And I said, well, in the tagline, if you heard it, this is not your mother's or father's SBA anymore. And I said, try SBA. And I will put you in contact with my district director in Jacksonville. They went back to Jacksonville Ambassador and he told his parents about SBA. He said that the new Cap Lines product has gone from 44 pages down to about 12 pages. And Terry Dennison is the district director in state of Georgia. Terry, if you could wave your hand. If you want to look and start and grow your own business at SBA, tackle Terry. Terry, stand up one more time, please. This is Terry. She deserves a round of applause, please. Terry Dennison. That's the face of SBA for the state of Georgia. So, Ambassador, they came to SBA and they took out, you talked to some of our counselors. The Brown family took out an SBA loan for, if I'm not mistaken, $3.9 million. They started a manufacturing company in Jacksonville where they are producing their own barbecue sauce. And they just added 50 jobs to that economy in the city of Jacksonville. And so when people talk about the old SBA, this is the new SBA. It's vibrant, it's young, it's accessible, and it's creating jobs left and right. And I just want to keep plugging that because I want people to take advantage of these opportunities as they present themselves.
I can support that as a bank partner of the SBA. He's exactly right. It is not their mother and father's SBA.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I've seen it come and go, and it's great.
I think they're really great stories for business people that we've experienced. I think that self-initiative in job creation is important. But I'm going to try to bring to the attention of everyone how important it is to interact with the government. The key things that we go around the country and we hear in the Jobs Council are things like access to capital. That's a key driver that is really haunting a lot of businesses who want to create jobs. So even if you have that initiative, you don't have access to capital, you cannot create jobs. What I also found is that a lot of business people are not connected with what is happening, like with the Jobs Council. The SBA is such an excellent tool that the Jobs Council and the President have focused on. The SBA of today, I can testify, the recommendations of the Council, several of those 90 recommendations have to do with how to make SBA accessible. I would strongly encourage you to go to the website or contact him. It has been so decentralized that it's become a very important tool, but a lot of business people are not connected with it. The other thing, if you heard the ambassador talk about, and earlier in my introductory discussions, I talked about creating jobs is really, I've learned, sitting in a room with probably 20 of the Fortune 30 companies in America, is really how common sense oriented job creation is. A lot of time, the media makes it more complex, or we make it more complicated than it is. If you listen to the ambassador talk about what he did in Atlanta was the airport. The core things that create jobs. In today's global economy, America has to be competitive. If we're not competitive globally, then companies will not come here. If the seaport of Singapore, you have to add 10 American seaports to handle the amount of freight that one seaport does in Singapore, then where is trade happening? It's not happening here. It's happening outside. He talked about the infrastructure, building the Atlanta airport. America has one of the best infrastructure systems in the world, but it's antiquated. However, politics, when we talk about investing in our infrastructure, I cannot understand why in the world it is so difficult to become a debate where you're talking about why should you invest in infrastructure when creating infrastructure will create jobs and it will make us competitive. So what I would say is really take the time. There's some really great recommendations and enablers on the Jobs Council site. Connect with it, and that way you can work with your Congress people, your senators, to support and expedite some of the policies that are going on. I cannot go through it here, but they're right there on the website. They're just things that, from education, from access to capital, and working with private and public sectors together, you'll be amazed as to what knowing those things can help you do.
But let me respectfully say that that's 1/10 of the story. That if you think about the money that the federal government has and think about the money that's available in the private sector, we have done much better going to the private sector.
Sure.
And the airport is, well, let's say we spent $10 billion on that airport. Well, you say Delta makes $25 billion out of it. When I left in 1990 as mayor, the airport was generating $31.5 billion and employed 60,000 people directly. The 2010 report, and we may have added another $3 to $5 billion to the cost of the airport, but nobody cares because the airport in 2010 generated $52.8 billion, and they may count it a little different, but they count 434,000 jobs that are directly dependent on that airport. Now, I suspect that we counted only the employees on the ground, and they're counting the hotels and the development around. But still, the ratio between investment and profit is so great that anybody ought to want to have an investment like that. And all of that is private money that we didn't have to ask Washington's permission of. And so I've been an advocate of, there's an article I ran across in Forbes last summer that there's $21 trillion. Now, $21 trillion is 3 times the gross national product of China. If you took 3 Chinas out of the world economy, what would you have? A deep recession. Well, they've done that. $21 trillion is equivalent to the $16 trillion U.S. economy and the $5 trillion Japanese economy. If you took the $21 trillion U.S. and Japan out of the world economy, what would you have? You would have great deficits and a depression. And so I have real problems with the dialogue going on in Washington because I don't think they see the problem. The problem, as I see it, is that Halliburton made $6 billion, and I'm just picking on them because they're the most visible and vulnerable. Let me do it nicely first. That all over the world, people who are making money are looking for places to reinvest it. But if you make money in China, or if you make money in Nigeria, or if you make money in Brazil, Brazil's probably turned the corner, but in many places, they're afraid to reinvest that money in their own countries. Colin Powell says that capital is cowardly. It only goes where it's safe. So the safest place for money in the world is the United States of America. So if there's $21 trillion out there looking for something to do, they ought to be able to find it here in this country. The other thing is, it's got to be honest. You don't invest your money with crooks. You've got to, and we guaranteed people that you didn't have to pay anybody under the table when they came into Atlanta. And the third thing is, it's got to be efficient. You've got to have a legal system that's reliable. You've got to have transportation that's reliable. You've got to have a judicial or a social infrastructure that is workable. And we have that. So with the $21 trillion out there, I think all we need is to define some big infrastructure projects and do what we did with the airport, offer tax-exempt municipal bonds and my favorite project since I grew up in Louisiana is the Mississippi Valley Redevelopment Corridor. Every 3 years, the Mississippi River floods, and it does enormous damage from Minnesota all the way down to New Orleans, and nobody fixes it when it's not flooding. So couldn't we design a development corridor like Franklin Roosevelt did with TVA, we don't flood off the Appalachian Range because we got Lake Lanier and Lake Altoona, and we got 75 lakes that serve as catchment basins and provide us with clean water. And Atlanta very seldom floods. So that we went under Shirley Franklin, and we taxed ourselves a 1-cent sales tax to build $3 billion worth of new sewage. And so my house doesn't flood. It doesn't run through my house anymore because there's a 40-foot tunnel going under my house, 400 feet down, that takes all the river water rushing off Peachtree Street, and it takes it under my house to the, I know it's under there because I had to sign an easement. Nobody else wanted it, but they gave me $4,000, and that paid my baby daughter's tuition one semester. But it is possible to develop an infrastructure that works and make it pay for itself. So the opportunities are here. The technology is here. The need is here. And the money is being hidden in somebody's mattress in Cayman Islands or Switzerland somewhere. But it's not earning them any interest, and it's not creating any jobs. It gives no security. In fact, if the Saudi money were invested in Egypt instead of Swiss banks, Egypt might not have had that uproar. Jim Clifton is absolutely right. The Arab Spring is about jobs. You got 35 million people with jobs and 80 million Egyptians. So you got 50 million people mad.
Right.
So we're at 8 o'clock. And can I? Well, how do you, Jerome? Can't we figure out with H.J. Russell a way to spend $500 billion somewhere around Georgia?
Absolutely. I think that one of the things we've been talking about is there is a lot of cash, particularly with private corporations just sitting on the sidelines. And then from a public infrastructure standpoint, I think that I agree with Andy is that, that public sector money you can leverage 3 times with private sector money. So
we did 10 times with underground.
Yeah. So 3 is the minimum.
$14 million of UDAG money, and we generated a $140 million project.
Yeah. So I think, and I'm gonna just speak kind of how we see things going forward. I think one thing we have to realize, our businesses in Atlanta, is that we're well positioned to play in the international space because of the airport, because of our universities, because of the logistics. The Savannah port's going to get widened, and we're going to be able to really take advantage of logistics. And I think that we will see. Atlanta's not a gateway city. It's not a New York or D.C., but it's that next tier. And I think once people come here, they will see it. So we're anticipating that it's going to really pick up here. We see very good prospects for growth and job growth and business growth in 13, 14, 15, 16, particularly going into the next decade. So we're optimistic. We're seeing the signs. We're seeing the capital come, starting to loosen up. And these low interest rates, particularly from a real estate standpoint, are very good. And I think that's going to start stimulating things. So we are optimistic about the future here in the United States. And I think you're going to see an increase in manufacturing in the United States. And I think that we're going to be providing more goods to the world. And I think that's going to help stimulate this economy.
To add to what you were saying, we as an airline understand that in order for us to remain competitive, we need in Atlanta to become a gateway, as you were mentioning. So that's the objective of adding as many cities and countries and destinations as possible. We know that we have served well as an economic engine for Georgia, and understand that there is also the opportunity to serve as an economic engine internationally. We know that our presence here does, in fact, increase the number of investments that are made in this area. People who are interested in establishing businesses, companies that want to establish businesses and move businesses, they're looking here. And that's because they know that through Delta, they can go anywhere just about in the world and continue to do business. We're not just moving people, we're also moving cargo. And we're moving the military. And we even compete with you sometime, Michael.
I heard you.
Actually, I was trying to push a merger between Delta and UPS.
We're probably your #1 customers, I'm sure.
Well, the other thing is what they're talking about in Savannah.
It's all good stuff.
And in 2 years, the Panama Canal widening is going to be complete. And there will be very few ports along the East Coast that will be able to handle the super ships that are going to be coming through the canal. So we're going to have to expand the port in Savannah and Jacksonville and Charlotte and Charleston. And Baltimore and Washington, but I think because of the way our mayor is working, we're going to have a jump on the rest of the East Coast because they're still recovering from Sandy, and we've been protected from that. Hopefully because we go to church and pray more. So keep going to church and keep praying. But we also will keep planning.
Ambassador, I also want to add just some remarks in this good form of government that we have, that we live in. It's so positive, and I don't mean to sound too patriotic, but this is the best country in the world as far as I'm concerned.
Can't be too patriotic.
Okay, this is the best country in the world. One thing that our government is doing to continue to add as we're preparing for the next Jerome Russells and the next Christopher Chase and so on, is making sure that you are business savvy and ready, educated in some form or fashion. And this is one thing that we're doing at SBA, and I brought it up here. It's a business plan template. Started at SBA. It's at sba.gov/training. 5 steps of how to write a business plan. Just that simple. So if you're ready and you have a business plan and you want to mold it, we have SCORE counselors who will help you with your business plan, who will put it in a place. Our retired SCORE counselors are great. They've lived it, worked it, they've done it, and now they want to teach the next generation to say, what does it mean to go into this next level? And they're doing that every day. So I want to make sure that you all were familiar with that. If you have a business plan or if you're working on one, to go to sba.gov/training and to log on to get this business plan template. And perhaps you could be that next person that is helping to support all this growth that we're about to have, Jerome, because you're about to get some huge growth. You can expand H.A. Russell. We can, in fact, and I can speak emphatically, we've spoken in the past since about a year or two now. Jerome came to me, Ambassador, and said, what can we do to support the bottom line? And I said, well, Jerome, what do you want? He said, I want to create more jobs. I want to expand. And we've been coming up with different ideas. So the best thing we can do is put our own ego to the side and realize and say, brother, I crave. Can I get some of this knowledge? Can I get some direction? And how do you do it? And that's what we've been doing. And that's what the rest of us have to do, is to join hands and continue to do that, even when folks aren't looking. It's so important.
I just want to make one comment about small businesses, because Jim made a very good reference about small businesses need to be created. It really does drive the economy. We're kind of a bellwether of the economy because of the kind of business that we're in. Frequently we're asked, what are you seeing? What are you feeling? What are you hearing? And our company really grew on the backs of small businesses. And so we have lots of initiatives to partner with small businesses as they're coming into being and helping them to grow. That's really where we feel we can do our best work. One small example of that is Zappos.com. People have heard of Zappos.
Oh, yeah.
And people have heard of Tony Say, I'm delivering happiness. And he started that company. If you read his book, he talks about UPS was a partner with him as he was just thinking about this concept of being able to get shoes to people, right, and have an ability to get them there, and then if you don't like the shoes, get them back to him, in an expedited fashion, right? And the people that use Zappos usually have a pretty good experience. And it was all about the employee experience. Well, he actually, when he was starting that business, got on the phone and was calling companies to help him. And when he got the UPS call, we went out and said, what can we do to help you? And that was a good return phone call we made. Right? But because we both made a lot of money on that deal, right? But that's an example of what Jim mentioned. Small businesses growing to be big businesses. But we got to keep small businesses coming because there's the next Zappos.com out there that's trying to be invented. And we want to be there with them when they think about how they're going to move their goods, because that's all about how the logistics work. So that's just one example about, I wanted to kind of accent that point. I think that's an important point you made.
And let me take a father's privilege and brag a little bit. My son came to me with a bunch of his friends with a crazy idea of starting a network. I said, come on, how you all going to do that? And they said, well, there are 14 million black families that can't afford cable. And if there are 14 million black families that can't afford cable, there are probably 50 million white families that can't afford cable. So we want to start a network that's analog or something like that. Can we use your name as one of the members? I said, sure, help yourself. I figured it wouldn't go anywhere. They are just getting to be 10 months old, and they're already turning a profit.
There you go.
And they have 80%. They know they have 80% of the black listeners that plug into Bounce TV, and they are doing so well that the cable channels are picking them up. So if you're on Comcast cable in Atlanta, Bounce is $2.44. And what they did was, black movies didn't stay long in movie theaters because they didn't have money to promote them. So there are a lot of good black movies that stayed in theaters 3 weeks that I never got to see. So they had 1 week of nothing but Sidney Poitier movies. And then they had another week of Richard Pryor movies. And they have Soul Train coming on every morning at 7 o'clock. It's much better to wake up to Soul Train than the news, than the gloom and doom that you get on most stations. But I'm saying, they say Bounce is TV our way. See, so they found a market that nobody else had paid any attention to. And there are many, many markets for almost anything you think of that you like. There are probably 500,000 people that would like to have access to it too. And that's the beginning of a business. Yeah. So thinking entrepreneurially and being willing to take risks and being investors and be known by how many jobs you create rather than by the shoes you wear and the pocketbooks you carry and the credit card debt you have. And I'm signifying now, so it's probably time for you to come up here and get this mic from me. But let me thank our panel, and let me particularly thank Jim Clifton for calling our attention to the fact that what is it the world needs?
Jobs.
Jobs. Who's going to do it?
We are.
We are.
Yeah.
And who is going to lead the fight to win the war on jobs? The United States of America.
Amen.
Hear, hear.
Amen.
Amen.
Good job. Let's be real corny and say, God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the ocean, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Now, I've never seen him do that before, ever. Now, for all the viewers watching internationally, for the 26 countries we have represented at this summit, this was not anti-everybody but America rhetoric. China, we still love you. India, we love you. We're all in this thing together because whatever goes around comes around. And Ambassador Young just loves, and Jim Clifton love America, as they should, but it's not, of course, to the exclusion of the rest of the world.
Bravo.
If you don't love where you live, something's wrong with you. If you don't believe that the most amazing place on the planet is where you live, something's wrong with you or you need to move. So this is just wonderful pride, and frankly, this is that American special sauce that makes this a magnet for the rest of the world. The only place in the world where every race of people is within its borders is the United States of America, and the magnet is not capitalism or a Mercedes or a purse or a shopping mall, it's freedom. And freedom today has to include self-determination, the ability to succeed on your own merit. If you work hard, play by the rules, go to school, pay your taxes, stop at red lights, respectful to your elders, say yes ma'am, yes sir, and play by the rules, it should pay off on a reasonable chance of success or failure on your own merit. It's just that simple. Now, I want to thank the panelists for, I think, an incredible presentation. Thank you. Just touching money, just feels rich. As we wrap up, have you guys enjoyed the night? The regional president for Wells Fargo had to leave, Mike, but I see Candy here. Thank you for being a sponsor for our, let me rephrase that. Thank you for being a $300,000 sponsor for the summit. Let me be specific about that. I want to thank Aries Capital, be a $150,000 sponsor for the summit, and all the others who helped us make this a banner event. Now, let me say some shout outs, provide some context, and let you go home as we prepare for a great day tomorrow. I'm not going to say every celebrity who's at this summit. We did want to get some bling factor at the summit, but I just can't not say that Dream Girls and Jennifer Holliday is in the house. Jennifer, stand up. We're honored to have you, Jennifer. We have Sean Cleary here, who's our honorary co-chair, flew in from South Africa, the man who co-wrote the South African Constitution with Nelson Mandela and many others. Stand up, Sean Cleary. We have the CEO of SEDCO here from Saudi Arabia, who flew in from Saudi Arabia. Hassan, please stand up. Hassan and Amr, if you wear a suit tomorrow that looks like you're from the U.S., I will personally come after you. We want you to wear that beautiful chobe from Saudi Arabia. You know, the ones like a dress, the real pretty ones. We want a guy to confuse you with a woman. We want the whole thing. Show up Saudi Arabia proud, man. I wear my chobe at home and confuse everybody walking up to knock on my door. Please show up tomorrow, Saudi Arabia proud. We've got China in the house. We've got Korea. Again, 26 countries. We're so very, very honored to have you with us. I'm not going to get heavy in the name calling because we won't get out of here tonight anytime soon. Mr. Wade, thank you very much for your great introduction of Jim Clifton, Capital University. Thank you for broadcasting the summit live, nationwide, for free for us. I appreciate that. And Isaac Ferris, who is the nephew of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Isaac, where are you? Dr. King's nephew. We were with your mother this morning, Christine King Ferris, the sister of Dr. King, and with Bernice King today. Isaac wanted me to remind you that Ambassador Young talked about Mayor Maynard Jackson, but didn't talk so much about himself. Atlanta is an international city, principally because this man made it so. Co-chair of the Atlanta Olympic Games, brought $70 billion of private investment in this city, made sure that it was all ethical and honest, and made sure that every corporation that came here had to do plus. Make a profit, give back, hire locally, and invest back in your community, or you will not get a city contract. Atlanta is the only international city in the South because we have a living icon here, from Dr. King through the first black UN ambassador in the history of the United States, congressman, 100 honorary doctorate degrees. The man is just a bad brother. Give it up for Andrew Young. Ready to walk off the hill, anywhere, wherever he is. All right, so let me wrap this up and let's go home. So I've been told by our friends from the Casey Foundation, Antoinette, to try to wrap this in the context literally of where jobs come from. Let me see if I can do this in 2 minutes. From Jim Clifton's book, The Coming Jobs War. Jim says by the year 2040, 2050, global GDP will be $200 trillion. Today, global GDP is $65 or so trillion. America has a quarter of that. So 7 billion people on the planet, 300 million people in America, 120 million or so are working, 80 million of them believe they have a good job. It's amazing that a country with that small of a corpus among 7 billion people is the economic driver of the world, but that's number one reality. So don't let anybody tell you we're done. 54% of Gallup respondents last year thought China was the economic leader of the free world today. But China's GDP, God bless them, respect them, it's all good, 6-7 trillion. You can take China, put it inside of our economy. Take Russia, take Mexico, take South Africa, take Germany, take France, and a couple more major economies, put them inside our economy at the same time and still have room. We are bad, bad, bad operator, which means good. We have a strategic advantage, but we can give away our strategic strength, and that's what Jim, I think, was talking about. Let's go now into the numbers. Jim taught me this. 300 million Americans, 27 million companies in America. How many of those 27 million create jobs? 6 million. Create one job or more. Out of the 6 million, how many of them employ 10,000 people or more? 967. Where do we have all of our kids teed up to? Go to elementary school, go to middle school, go to high school, go to college, go work for a big company. 967 in the entire country. And I hate to say it, no disrespect intended, that's not where jobs come from. I was with the CEO of a major company, won't name the company. He's been at 11,000 employees for a dozen years. One of the 967, I said, what do you do when you grow? We buy the company, we slim it down, we grow through efficiency, not people. So where do jobs come from? 99.9% of all jobs come from employers with 1,000 employees or less. Between 1,000 and 18,000 employees are 18,000 companies. Am I going too fast? 70% of all employers are 500 employees or less. Half of all jobs in America, 100 employees or less. We are literally looking for love in all the wrong places. Jim, now let me tie that back into startups that Jim mentioned. We need 2 million startups a year. How many startups do we have a year? About 400,000. Jim Wells first turned me on to this. It was troubling him. The problem is not enough startups. You and me, Barry White is the comptroller of the currency, been there, deputy comptroller. He's not gonna create a startup. Well, I'm crazy enough, I might. He's not. He's got a mortgage, he's got kids in college, he's got 20 years, 30 years on the job. With all due respect, most people are not going to go do that. Where are they gonna come from? High school students, think Twitter, think Facebook, think LinkedIn. All this stuff came from kids in high school, in college, and minorities are going, and women are going to be where all this job growth comes from. Where does job growth come from? Startups, year 3 and year 7. startups and what's called shoot-ups. That's it, folks. And so when Jim talks about 30 million kids, 4th grade through 12th grade, don't think, oh, ain't that sweet? We are the world. We are the future. No. That is the bench strength for the playoff games of the rest of your lives. Last number. 25 years ago, we were shaking in our boots that our friends from Japan, we have delegates here from Japan, were going to just own America. Remember that? It was a foregone conclusion. Japan wins. Anybody remember that? And we gave up. We just threw our hands up. It's coming. All the economists said Japan's at 7 trillion, we'll be at 5 trillion. And out of nowhere, what happened 50 years ago, Detroit was the richest city in the world. Richer than Paris, richer than London. Richest city in the world because they had an exciting idea and they stayed on the edge. They've got to reinvent themselves today. But 25 years ago, a new Detroit emerged. It was called Silicon Valley. And out of nowhere, literally out of an idea, out of our creativity, we pulled $10 trillion of annual GDP literally out of nowhere and threw it at the world and took on leadership once again. The message is very simple. It's all in our hands. We can do this. It's not about civil rights. Dr. King had a dream. We should honor that and respect that. But the best way to start living your dream is to start by waking up. Today it's about civil rights, and that's about making free enterprise and capitalism work for the poor and the least of these God's children. All free enterprise in this country, all wealth is created through the poor. Walmart, largest retailer in the world, not Neiman Marcus, with all due respect. You look at the telephone, the cell phone, toys for the rich. Until they got democratized and made available to all of God's children, the economy did not grow, those markets did not grow. Africa will probably become the first wireless continent. They're going to step right over landline phones and go to cell phones. People who have no running water and no roof over their head in Africa have a cell phone. And that is the truth. Don't let anybody tell you we're done. Don't let anybody tell you we cannot win. America is a great country, but most importantly, we are a great world. We are global citizens. We are brothers and sisters. And I'll end with Dr. King's quote, paraphrase. We need to work together as brothers and sisters or die as fools. I love you. God bless.